Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the 2025 Chevy Trailblazer. It's actually an LS trim level, which is basically the base model, and it's in the all-new color for 2025, which is Marina Blue Metallic, which is probably my favorite color of this Trailblazer, or most of the modern Chevys including this color. But it's not perfect, it does have some flaws, so today I get to share the good, the bad, and the ugly of the 2025 Trailblazer to help you guys at home decide if this might be worth your time and money. So you can expect to see a walk around, all the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and then my final thoughts. And huge thanks to Twin Falls Chevy for letting me borrow this one for the day. I'll link them below if you're interested. They sell below MSRP. They ship all over the country. And with that said, let's dive right into this review. And if you like Chevy, the all-new Marina Blue Trailblazer, or my video, please be so kind to consider liking my video. I appreciate it. It helps me know you want to watch more stuff like this, but it'll also help you by having YouTube choose to show you more stuff like this. Thank you so much. But if you are new to the Chevy Trailblazer, or I should really specify the modern Chevy Trailblazer, because about 20 years ago you could buy a Chevy Trailblazer and it was a big V8 rear-wheel drive focus performance SUV basically, but now these are different. This generation of Trailblazer, it came out in 2021, so we're now in the 5th model year of it for 2025. It did have a refresh last year for 2024, mostly affecting the front end, just revising it, making it look a little bit more aggressive with the current design language of what Chevy is going for. But it's actually a compact crossover. It's built, at least for the North American market, in Korea or South Korea, because the VIN number starts with a K, and they sell about 60 to maybe a little bit over 100,000 units of these every single year in North America alone. But they are a pretty popular option. A base model LS two-wheel drive, which is a front-wheel drive focused unibody, not the rear-wheel drive V8 again of the past. It starts as low as about $23,000 before destination and delivery. This one is an LS as mentioned in the beginning, but it does have a few extra goodies. It has the larger engine, it has all-wheel drive, so this one actually is a little bit closer to $30,000. And if you really want a loaded out RS or active, that could be into the low $30,000 ballpark. But it is a 5-star crash test rated vehicle. This one specifically has lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, pedestrian braking, and quite a few other standard safety features. So for about $30,000, beyond just the beautiful Marina Blue color, you actually are getting a pretty substantial product for the most part. And while this modern Chevy Trailblazer is a compact crossover, if you're going to be cross-shopping it against its closest rivals, that's going to be things like the Kia Soul, maybe the Nissan Kicks, or even the Subaru Crosstrek. But there's one thing that differentiates this from all other crossovers. I think it has the smallest engine known to mankind for the year 2025. If you want a base model that is only front-wheel drive, you're going to get a 1.2 liter front-wheel drive setup. It's a 3-cylinder turbo, makes 137 horsepower. Very small engine. We're not sure the reliability and the long-term longevity of something like that, but hey, at least you have a good warranty. And it's a small engine, should be pretty easy to work on. There's a lot of room under the hood, but more on that later. But this one, being the front-wheel drive setup, you have a whopping, earth-shattering 1.3 liter. It makes about 17 more horsepower, 18. It has a 155 peak ponies, which is pretty similar to the 2-liter or the smaller engine configurations of its competition, but it does it in a much smaller engine with a turbocharger. But Chevy's not new to turbos. They've had the 1.4 Ecotec engine for a long time. These new 1.2 and 1.3 liters basically have just replaced that, and the 1.2 liters seem to be doing pretty well so far in the Chevy Trax, although that is a smaller vehicle. This one with a little bit more power, you definitely can feel the difference in it. And it sounds good. It revs pretty quickly. Just long-term longevity, I just don't know how it's gonna do. But if you're anything like me, you like driving lighter weight, smaller, more maneuverable vehicles that you're not fighting physics the whole time. You can actually take corners at speed. You can easily drive it around town and park in average sized parking spaces. So this Trailblazer, it's only about 14.5 feet long. The wheelbase is about 8.6 feet, so it's large enough to be planted and stable on the road. It's roughly 6 feet wide, about 5.5 feet tall. This one seems to weigh around 3,300 pounds. It can only tow about 1,000 pounds, so it's not designed for towing. But the payload capacity is actually pretty impressive at about 943 pounds, which is more than a Toyota 4Runner or a lot of other compact crossovers. It has about 7.5 inches of ground clearance, which that seems to be the same figure whether it's front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive from what I've seen online. It has a 3:17 final drive ratio if it's an all-wheel drive like this, But if you do go with the front wheel drive, it has a really aggressive 5.4 final drive ratio to kind of compensate for that a little bit. And then it can do a full circle in about 37 feet. The final things to mention on here, there's both a good and bad thing to bring up. First of all, the gas door is located on the driver's side, which is where I like it. But when you lock the vehicle, the gas door doesn't lock, so the bums can attempt to siphon some of your 13.2 gallons of regular octane fuel. This is only rated for 26 city, 29 on the highway when you have the all-wheel drive system, this wheel and tire setup, and the 9-speed transmission with the 1.3 liter, which I feel like is below par for what the other vehicles are running. But something I do really like about it, even though you are getting 380 miles of max road trip and range, and that's not super far, is this is a very common tire and wheel setup. It's a 17-inch wheel with a 225/60/17 Continental Pro Contact. It should be a pretty good tire, but only has about 7 or 8 30-seconds of tread. So I don't know that this is going to last much more than maybe 30,000 miles, although it is a pretty lightweight vehicle, so maybe it will surprise you. Please comment below if you have those and how many miles you've gone out of it. Otherwise, this is your key. Has unlock, lock, remote start, panic button, but it doesn't seem to have proximity key features. I'm not finding anywhere that's opening it up, so you're going to have to unlock it before you grab the handle. Otherwise, the driver's side door panel is about what you expect for around $30,000. A lot of Chevy black materials. They're not too hard, but you're also not going to want to put your arm up there for too long. Nice door card made out of cloth. You have some shiny piano black. Nice big handle, kind of rubberized texture on some of the plastics, but there is a variety. There's nothing on the door sill. It thankfully does have all other mats, even for being just an LS trim level. Rubberized pedals, hood release, OBD2 port, little storage cubby, lighting stock ventilation, more lighting options up there, and then a manually adjusted cloth seat that is not heated, and no power moonroof up top on this one. Sitting inside the Trailblazer, it's a pretty nice place to be. It's maybe not my favorite compact crossover, but it still feels pretty good. It does have push button start, fires right up with the 1.3 engine. You don't feel a lot of rumbling under the hood because it's physically so small, but it's a pretty nice place to be overall. The horn, pretty high pitched. You have adaptive cruise settings on the left, voice and volume, and going through the entertainment display on the right, but there really just isn't a lot to do through there. Overall, I like my seating position. I like my forward-facing visibility. There's also not really a lot to go through this larger 11-inch screen, so it looks fancy, but this is basically what you get. Basic information that usually would be on the smaller display with the tach and odometer. Otherwise, you have physical controls, no heated seats as you can see on this one. At 12 volts, some plugins, some storage. You have your selection right there of actually pretty good options. Auto start, stop, you can turn that off. Lane keep assist, traction control, sport mode, and all-wheel drive. You can actually hear it mechanically engage when you push that or turn it off. And then the backup camera on this Chevy, like most other Chevys, I really like it. The trajectory lines do move. It's large and it's pretty clear. You have some smaller cup holders, you have electronic parking brake, and then this is kind of where this feels like a lot of other cheaper Chevy vehicles. You have just a small storage pocket and a very narrow, small center console with a lifty tray. So it's going to be hard to reach in and out of that for various things. Only limited amount of stuff will fit in there. But overall, you don't really have a lot going on up here, just some incandescent lighting. The visor does not slide or have an extension. There's also no lighting right there. So there's some trade-offs at this price point for an all-wheel drive crossover like this. But let's turn it off and we'll hop in the back. The back door panel basically follows the same theme and design language. The window, though, is even smaller. It's barely big enough to host the Monroney sticker right there, if you notice that. And then a little interesting lock and unlock right there, like an old school vehicle. Otherwise, this is your bench seat. It's a 60-40 split. It should be pretty light being cloth seats. You have the child safety tethers right there. You also, actually, I don't feel anchor points down there, so that's a shame, unless maybe you can get to them through there. Yep, you can get to them through there. So that's a nice thing. You also have a map pocket on both of these seats. So either backseat occupant could be the backseat driver, but there's no ventilation plugins or heated seats back here. There's also no folding armrest. And again, the windows don't look very big from back here. But with that said, let's hop out and I'll show you the hatch. I actually think the back of this Trailblazer looks pretty good. It's definitely not as aggressive as the front, but the blue metallic Marina paint I think just looks fantastic. You can also see some of the parking sensors on the back, but your handle to open it, it's just gonna be hidden down here. And then this one has shocks, but they're not a power liftgate option. So back here you have about 25 cubic feet of room, which is actually pretty good. You don't have a lot of bumper blocking you before you can get into it, so you don't have a super high or super inconvenient load floor. You have an incandescent light. You again have all of the child safety tethers. You could put a privacy shade right there. It looks like a little bit of storage back here. This can change height. You have your tools, your temporary spare tire down here. Anything else you want to hide, comment below what you're going to keep down there. Otherwise, it's not too difficult to reach up and to lower it down, but it does raise pretty high above the 5.5 feet tall vehicle that this is. So keep in mind if you have a smaller garage, just that you're not going to be bumping the ceiling. And if you get a ride shotgun in this one, the door panel, it looks basically the same as the driver's side. You just have some different switch gear right there. You don't have all the controls. Just like the driver's side, you don't get power options, no power heated seats, nothing like that. My backpack though, it's supported, the bolstering, it's good enough for this type of vehicle. And then there's no transmission tunnel storage or above the glove box. It's also non-locking, but it's adequately sized. So with that said, let's come around to the front. I'll pop the hood and I'll show you what the 1.3 liter engine looks like. Under the hood, you have the 1.3 liter engine with a turbo in the back on the exhaust manifold side, connected to a 9-speed transmission. It makes 155 peak horsepower, but you have to rev it out pretty close to redline. Thankfully, the 174 pound-feet of torque, that actually comes on at 1600 RPM, so it feels surprisingly punchy and sporty around town. You have your reservoirs on the periphery, your battery, your fuse box, your induction that then disappears through the backside, comes around for the intake side. It doesn't look like a very big engine, does it? You even have the computer right next to it. It also has an engine mount right under that to hold it to the vehicle's chassis. Hopefully this doesn't need very many repairs, doesn't have many issues, but there's actually a decent amount of room to work under here for it being a small engine. A lot of this you might have to move, the air filter, some of the piping and plumbing out of the way, but I don't think this would actually be that difficult to work on, especially where it is such a small engine. So with that said, let's drop the hood and take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the 2025 Trailblazer all-wheel drive LS. Let's give it a little bit of gas. For being a 1.3 liter with less than 160 horsepower, it actually gets right up to the highway or the country road speed pretty well. Visibility in this is not quite as good as I was expecting, but it does look very sporty. And from the inside of this vehicle, you can see out quite well. But bonus, it's not very long, so you can see right down the center rear view mirror, and the side mirrors are ginormous on this. So your visibility is pretty good, and having a lot of the basic Chevy safety features like blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise, that's all very helpful information. These cloth seats in this lower trim level Trailblazer, they actually feel pretty good in the time I've spent in them so far. I do wish they were heated, but you are going to have to pay a little bit more if you want heated features like that. The wheel feels good. It's not leather wrapped, it's just like a polymer plastic type of wheel, but it feels good. It's not going to age poorly. Let's get on the brakes, maybe a third of the pedal. Slows it right down a little bit in nosedive. This handles corners really well, and then let's listen to that 1.3 liter sing. It does a surprisingly good job. I'm about a mile above sea level today, so even turbo engines are down on power, but it seems quite adequate. Hopefully it is a long-lasting platform. Hopefully it's not overworked. I guess the trade-off of a smaller overworked engine is you get to hear it rev out and you get to hear it roar a little bit more often, which I just personally think sounds kind of fun. But only getting about 30 miles per gallon. There are competitors that get better MPG for this price point in this class of vehicle, but having a turbo is going to help a lot at our elevation. So if you do live high above sea level, you might want to consider something like this. But being a 5-star crash test rated vehicle, being overall Chevy reliable, where you do have Chevy service stations basically everywhere, there's a lot of things to like about this. But anyways, guys, let's get to the private road and we'll do a 0 to 60. 0 to 60 in the 2025 Chevy Trailblazer. I have it in all-wheel drive. It is in track mode with traction off. Gonna do a little bit of a brake rev for this 9-speed and let's see what it can do. First gear's pretty good. And true 0 to 60 came in at 9.42 seconds. Not too bad given the fact that we're about 5,000 feet above sea level today, so even though this is turboed, it was still down on power, maybe 7 or 8%. My final thoughts of the 2025 Chevy Trailblazer after its refresh last year, after gaining E85 capability and Marina Blue paint for this year, I do think it gets better every single year. It has enough safety features to keep you and your family safe. It is a 5-star crash test rated vehicle. It has a lot of standard features, although it doesn't have a lot of the luxurious features that you get for a more expensive higher trim level or higher model period. This does have a lot of things going for it. It's a good all-wheel drive crossover. You can get them for well under $30,000. The trade-offs are, it's a very small engine. If you're going to be loading this down, stressing it out a lot, I might look towards a naturally aspirated engine, and just like the all-wheel drive 1.3 liter has, a traditional transmission versus a CVT, because they just haven't been out that long. With this being a pretty new platform only a few years ago, we don't know how they're going to hold up, but so far they seem to hold up really well. Owners on the forums overall seem to really like them, and you can't get past the fact that this looks really good, especially with Chevy's new design language and Marina Blue. If that's not a reason to buy it, I don't know what is. But anyways, guys, if you got anything out of my video, please consider liking my video, comment your thoughts and opinions below, subscribe if you haven't already. I hope to see you again. Remember, this one is at Twin Falls Chevy. They sell below MSRP. They ship all over the country. And I will likely also have just an impromptu driving impressions video of this as well, and probably a comparison to a Subaru Crosstrek for those of you wondering which one you should potentially consider buying. Anyways, guys, I wish you the best. Hope to see you again on those other videos. And until then, take care.